Good morning. Today we're going to begin Unit 3 and talk about solving linear inequalities. Our learning targets today are solving one-step linear inequalities and then also graphing the solution on a number line. This is the second part of our equations and inequality scale. So if you were at a 3.0 for the last unit, it's possible that you could drop back to a 2.0, which is okay to start. You have to be able to do both to be at a 3.0 overall. So, a couple things you need to know. Solving one-step inequalities is much like solving equations with the addition of one special rule. If you multiply or divide the variable by a negative, you must flip the inequality symbol. And what I usually say is if you multiply or divide both sides of the inequality by a negative, then you must flip the inequality symbol. One other thing is when you're graphing solutions to inequalities, you need to remember that you could either have an open point when you have a less than or greater than symbol, or you could have a closed point if you have less than or equal to or greater than or equal to symbol. What this means is if we're filling it in, that it could be equal to that number in addition to being bigger or smaller. And then also if I have an open dot, that means it's smaller than that number, but it can't be that number. Or greater than that number, it can't be that number. When you're graphing, to make it easier, it always helps to write the solution with a variable on the left side and then the number on the right side. And if you're going to do that, you have to remember to flip some things around. So we'll talk about that a little bit. Okay, we're going to do 4 problems here together. I'm going to go fairly quickly, so hit pause if I'm going too fast. Let me know if you have any questions. And other than that, 4 problems, do 2 for practice, have them checked, and then you can go on to the practice problems in the packet. Okay, first one, same idea, still drawing our line through the inequality sign this time. And if I have x plus 3, to get x alone, I'm going to subtract 3 from both sides. So if I do that, 2 minus 3 is negative 1. Since I did not multiply or divide in this problem, I don't need to worry about flipping my sign. So my answer is that x is greater than negative 1. Now on your sheet, you're going to have a bunch of number lines provided for you. You need to make sure you label them correctly. So negative numbers get bigger as you go to the left. Positive numbers get bigger as you go to the right. So make sure you do that correctly on there. Because this is not equal to, we're going to do an open dot. And then the numbers that are bigger than 1 are going to be to the right. Now the reason I tell students to make sure their variables on the left side is because once you do that, you'll notice that if it's on the left side, the variable's on the left side, this arrow tells you which way to shade on your number line. Okay, so solution is x is greater than negative 1, and then we have our number line. You can show your number line a couple different ways, so that's how I typically do it. I'll show you a couple other ways here in a minute. Next one, solving. Okay, draw your line through your equal sign or your inequality sign. And this time my 11 and my x are right next to each other, so that means I need to divide to cancel. So I'm left with x and negative 3. Now you need to ask yourself, since I divided, was 11 positive or negative? If it's negative, I have to flip my sign. But since it was positive, we're going to keep the same. Okay, so I get x is less than or equal to negative 3. So on your number line, go ahead and fill in negative 3 and then your other numbers around it. And then this time, because it's equal to, that means it could also be 3, so we're going to fill that point in. And then less than is to the left. So here's another way you could show me that you're shading to the left of that point. Okay, like I said, I like to draw my line with my arrow there. This works too. Okay, next problem. Okay, this time we have a division problem here. So because we're dividing by 2 there, I'm actually going to multiply by 2 to cancel. However, notice that there's a negative there. So to get y completely alone, I'm actually going to multiply by negative 2. So when I do that, my negative 2's cancel to leave me with y. And 7 times negative 2 is 14. Sorry, negative 14. Since I multiplied by a negative number on both sides, I actually need to remember to flip my inequality sign over. So instead of having a less than sign, we now have a greater than sign. Okay, or equal to. Okay, label your numbers, negative 14, negative 13, negative 12. They get bigger to the left because they're negative. Okay, and again, this time we have a closed dot because we have the equal to sign there. And then we are going to shade to the right, so you could also show it this way. And you're good. Last one we're doing together, and then you are on your own to try a couple. Okay. Drawing my line through, negative 3 and p are right next to each other, so to cancel that negative 3, I need to divide on both sides. Now, 9 divided by negative 3 is negative 3. and then I have p on the right side. Because that 3 was negative, I need to flip my sign over. Here is where most people make their mistakes. They try to graph this, and they shade the wrong direction. So remember when I talked about graphing, how important it is to make sure your p is first to make it easier to see how you graph. So what we're going to do is we're going to flip our p and our negative 3 over, but to do that, we also have to flip our sign over. Okay, so you actually end up flipping your sign twice here. So by doing that, I can see that I should have an open dot and shade to the left when I do this one. Okay, try those last 2 problems. Have them checked. If you have any questions, hit pause, let us know. Otherwise, have a great day.